Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, April 16th, 2021. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. We have a 10-game NBA DFS slate here, Coach, and I do have to say happy birthday to my nephew Tuck here on the 16th, who is actually a frequent listener to our podcast. So happy birthday, Tuck. And
Beautiful. Happy birthday, sir.
yeah, and we've got a big Friday night, Coach, with a big slate, which is what I know that you like.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic. I mean, anytime we get double digits games, I'm in my glory. I mean, it seems like everybody else hates them and complains when it's over 6 games or 7 games at the max. But the more the better. And, I always say that, and everybody, mentions that in Discord. But really, my reasoning is that I feel the more you have to prepare, it's going to favor those of us that prepare properly and spend a long time doing it. So, you can scramble around like last night with a 4-game slate, and put a little bit of time in and come up with some decent things, but you can't slide by on these double digit slates. So I'm all about, loving our edge and our advantage on these large slates, and can't think of a better way to start off the weekend and with a very competitive 10 gamer.
Yeah, and you mentioned last night's 4-game slate, and I do just want to mention how that finish in the Celtics game was one of the most bizarre things I've seen recently with DFS, with the Celtics just getting up to about a 10 or 12 point lead there, end of the third quarter. The starters go out, and then the bench blew up the lead to about 25, and it looked like the Boston starters weren't going to play again. So I was worried about my hybrid lineup, which had a bunch of Celtics. It had Kemba and Tatum and Thompson.
Right.
And then the guys in Phoenix were able to get my lineup over the cash line. And then it could have been a lot better if the Celtics had decent run in the fourth quarter. But that blowout took away all the minutes. And then it was crazy how the Lakers got back into it, and they had to bring Tatum and Brown back in. But then only Brown really produced in the last couple of minutes. Tatum didn't add anything. So just kind of weird to have such a blowout all of a sudden and then come back and they dust off a couple of the starters. But
strange. It was a strange night all the way around. It just odd games last night.
Yep. Yeah. And that can happen on a 4-game slate where you get the Giannis is in, and then he doesn't quite produce per minute like he usually does. And then if you have one game turn into a blowout, it really shakes things up. But
and then what about the Schroeder thing? Good Lord.
Oh,
he was
goodness.
in, then he was
in,
out.
In and out. Doubtful. Foot
we
infection.
Had to switch our lineups.
Now he's starting
3 times. Yeah.
So,
I'm glad that's over with.
Yeah, we'll see how it all balances out here with these 10 games. No back-to-backs tonight, Coach, but we do have 5 teams on the front end of a back-to-back.
Yeah, I love it, though, too, because, that, again, for 20 teams playing and none of them, we don't have to worry about it being the second night of a back-to-back. That's a big plus. It evens the playing field,
I mean, of course, we have San Antonio on the front end of a back-to-back.
Well, that's like counts as 2 teams.
Right exactly. So, and then 2 totals over 230, including some nice action here early. Oftentimes we get the later games where we get these higher totals, but we got some teams on the East Coast now that we like. The Wizards, the Pelicans have come east here. Brooklyn on this slate. So get us started here on the early side.
Yeah, I mean this is an outstanding slate with a lot of moving parts, and I'll tell you this. Usually you see this the last few weeks of the regular season where there's tons of guys sitting, but in this, we're not post-COVID yet. We're still COVID world. That with the, people around the NBA are saying it's a bit of a compressed schedule with, 5 games in 7 days, et cetera. And we're seeing a lot of guys get hurt. So, it really amplifies, Andrew, the need to come aboard with Coach Talk, because this is what we're doing 24/7. We are on these player moves, these injuries, these COVID sits. And, as competitive as it is in DFS, you can't make a mistake on any of those guys. So definitely join us. And listen, if you want to jump in even a 3-day pass, dfscoachtalk.com, you can sign up right there. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, on the way in here, quick second, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, click the alert button up in the top corner. That really, really helps us. We keep this in front of the paywall 7 days a week, and that is our big ask on YouTube each day. All right, as you mentioned, the first game on the slate is the Oklahoma City Thunder at the Detroit Pistons. It is the first night of a back-to-back for Detroit. It is -3 Detroit, only 215 on the over-under. And this is definitely the game with the most player news. So buckle up for this one, Andrew, and get out 2 pencils instead of 1. You've got Hall, Poku, Muscala, Deck, and Shea all out for Oklahoma City. Dort is back, so you can get the Dorter chamber ready tonight. He is back. And then Detroit has just a smidgen of guys out. Plumlee, Grant, Joseph, Ellington, Smith Jr., Magruder. So you wonder how they're even throwing a lineup together, to get this done.
They got the B team ready for tonight.
Yeah, or G League team or whatever developmental team they've got. But very interesting. And for this game, because we have such a big schedule, we don't want to make this a super long podcast because we know everybody's busy. But let me give you the probables just for this game because there's so many guys out. It's looking like Maladone, Dort, Baisley, Roby, and Brown, very possibly the starting team for the Thunder. And right now, they've got Detroit penciled in with Saban Lee, Frank Jackson, Josh Jackson, Sadiq Bey, and Isaiah Stewart. So again, those aren't confirmed, but wanted to give you just a quick snapshot here because even though this game is sort of a disaster, I'm interested because, again, we're going to be in a scenario here where there are certain guys that should get a lot of shots, and that could be the value. Now, with all these teams and all the news, value is going to open up like it does every day. But initially, I like some value here, Andrew. I think Josh Jackson, he always takes a lot of shots when he's in there. I think you can even consider Sadiq Bey. And one of my favorite not pay-ups, but value plays is Isaiah Stewart. I always talk about him and love when Plumlee's out because he's the man there at center. Now, he's not a complete lock and load because he does go against a combination of Moses Brown and Mr. Bradley there on the other side, who are both adept defenders and some big guys in the middle. But I'll take Isaiah Stewart's hustle and competitiveness, and with the minutes, I think he's very in play. On the OKC side, again, there are a lot of good guys. Maladon's not a bad play because he's going to have the ball in his hands probably 35 minutes in this game. So just something to look at. You can go the opposite direction if you want to, look at a few of the bigs from Oklahoma. The only problem is their prices are great, but there's somewhat of a rotation there with Baisley, Roby, Brown, and Bradley. A lot of sharing of rebounds and things. So even though they're tempting, initially I'm not going to go there unless no other value opens up. So maybe a one-off from Oklahoma City, maybe a one-off from Detroit. Certainly not a key game. However, you could grab a 40 or 50 burger guy. And last guy I'll mention before I turn it back to you, because you're probably chewing on your fingers that I didn't mention him. Yes, Lugan's Dort is an option today. Hey, if he's going to take 25, 30 shots, how could he not be an option? And he's got his nose in the middle of everything. So, and he doesn't have, normally he has to play and guard. He guards everybody from LeBron to Kawhi to Kyrie Irving, you name it. He guards pretty much every position. There's not really a stud pay up guy from the Detroit side that he has to play. Who's he going to guard initially? Saban Lee or Jackson or who knows? So I equate that to, Dort being fresh off the game off and not having to exert quite as much energy defensively. So yes, I will very possibly follow the Dort Durantula train here and go from there. So that's what I got game one.
Yeah, Dort certainly in the mix. There are a lot of small forwards I like on this slate on FanDuel, but you're right, he is rested because he scored 42 and then he took the night off. So pretty solid situation for him. And this
Yep.
game in general, I think is kind of fun. It's one of the fun things about DFS this year is trying to figure out how these rotations are going to go with all the moving parts. And this
Yes.
is a perfect example of it. And I kind of think on the OKC side, they may go a little smaller and
Okay.
move Roby back to the bench and start Svi again, and maybe
Okay.
go with Maladon, Svi, Dort, Baisley, and Moses Brown. And then in that case, Svi Mikhailiuk is a possible value option on FanDuel only, where he's 3,600.
Okay.
Again, going up against his own team here,
Yeah.
and and Dort would be the only guy. The other guy I would look at here on OKC. I'm not going to play both of those guys, but one of them is a possibility. And interesting, when they played before, Stewart did a pretty good job against Moses Brown, held him to 11-5, while Stewart got 12-6 in only 22 minutes. So
Right.
I do prefer Stewart over Moses Brown here as a cheaper option. We definitely like playing him when he starts. It's not an awesome spot dealing with those guys like you mentioned, but he's in play for me as well. And then with the guards for Detroit, here's another interesting one to try to figure out. I think Killian Hayes could step up here and maybe get the start. He's
Possibly.
trending back up in minutes, and he's a really nice price. So he's in play for me today as a value play. And I think Dort will most likely start on Josh Jackson. I mean, I would think it would be Jackson or Bay and Eileen
Yeah.
Jackson, so I probably will shy away from him. And then Diallo would be a GPP consideration. But yeah, interesting here to try to sort it out, and certainly could be a one off for me to get things started.
Yeah.
The next 7 o'clock game is a little bit more high profile, coach, on ESPN. The Clippers and the 76ers, two title contenders, 224.5 total. 76ers favored by 3. Big injury news here is that Kawhi is questionable. PG should be back out there. Ibaka, Beverly still out. And then on the Sixers side, Tobias Harris questionable, as well as Dwight Howard. So this is a game with two really good defenses here, 10th and 2nd. And we don't have the great pace from the Clippers, but good pace from the 76ers. Good offenses on both sides. And I may get a guy or two here from this one. I like Mr. Embiid tonight. I
Okay.
like the matchup against Zubats. I like the way he's been trending. 33 minutes last time, smashed against Brooklyn, 39-13. So he's a pay up option for me on this slate. I think there's a lot of value that we're going to get to that will allow us to get several studs here. And he's one guy I'm looking at. You could also look at Ben Simmons here if Tobias is out. I like Simmons' price on FanDuel at 6,900. With potentially Kawhi out along with Beverly, two
Right.
terrific defenders. That really
Yeah.
narrows the field of guys who can slow down Ben Simmons in the open court. So those are the two guys I'm probably looking at on the Sixers side is paying up for Embiid or Simmons. And then with the Clippers, we'll see how the starting lineup shakes out. If Kawhi sits and we get Luke Kennard starting, he's cheap again on FanDuel at 3,800. Marcus Morris is in play for me, one of your favorite values, although now he's mid 5K range, so
Yeah.
not
He's moved up
not quite
price wise.
quite the value, yeah. And then with the guards, Reggie Jackson was awesome last game, but that was in Detroit. He got hyped up for that. He talked about it after the game, how much it meant to
Yeah.
to play well there in the city where he really grew up and matured in. Rondo is a cheap option off the bench. There's a lot of guards on this slate, coach, in that 3K range that are going to be options. I mean, Killian Hayes in that first game, Rondo. There's really 4 or 5 of them. I'd like to look at one of those guys in a lot of my lineups. So Rondo would be an option. Not my favorite, but just wanted to point him out. But yeah, I'm really looking at Embiid tonight. What do you think about that pay up option?
I don't think it's bad. I don't have him in my player pool at this moment. I'm a big Joel Embiid guy. I mean, I had him the other day he was 20 some percent owned, which is low for him, and smashed. My concern in this game is the overall pace with both teams, being pretty proficient defensively. I just don't know if this game is going to have quite the pace for some of these high price guys to pay off. And there are some huge high price guys here. Now, Simmons, I believe, will be guarded by Paul George, so that is going to take him out, and vice versa. I think Simmons will also guard George. So two defenders that I really respect. So I'm not going to go on either side of that, even if Kawhi sits, because George will then become extremely highly owned, and he's been hot. But Ben Simmons is a ridiculous defender. His length, he bothers you, and just enough, I think, to not have George go off. Because if Simmons overplays him and he drives, you got Joel, who I personally believe is the best rim protector in the league. So I'm not going to go there. Kawhi, if he starts, obviously that shuffles the deck, but it doesn't shuffle the deck for me with George. It would if my man Morris is back, though he's clipped over the 5K mark in price. I think he's a great play if Leonard sits. So I really need to know that news. He's the guy I'm interested in on that side of the ball. On the Philly side, this Tobias Harris news is really huge too. I think if Harris does sit, that certainly amplifies your Embiid pick and makes that something that I'll seriously consider. But this is such a big game. They both have basically the same record, one game different. Harris is usually a gamer. He doesn't sit a lot. So my initial breakout here, I have Harris in, but we certainly need that news. And that's what, has me not looking at Embiid. Now, if Harris sits and Dwight Howard sits, who's also questionable, now you're talking about being pretty thin at the big. And that's when, with the double sit there, I think then Embiid really has to become a stronger option, because every minute he gets on the floor, it's another, he's 1.6 DFS points per minute. So 1.63. So you gotta consider that. If some of those guys play though, this isn't going to be a focal point for me. I mean, my theory on, especially on Friday nights, a big night for people to watch NBA, and then the TNT nights are big also. But I think these national TV games get overowned. Everybody wants to get a star or two to follow. And I just don't think, especially if these guys play that are questionable, that it's conducive just to a smash. So if those guys are in, and I'm talking about, Kawhi, Harris, and Howard, then it's going to be a total pass for me. And only if a combination of them, don't play, will I take a look at a possibility of Morris or Embiid.
Yeah, and I agree with you on Paul George. He has really been hot. 4 straight games over 50 fantasy points, but I think this could be a good time to fade him with the higher price and with the Simmons defense.
I'll tell you, if I had to choose a guy in the entire NBA, talking every single player, to slow down Paul George, I'd probably pick Ben Simmons. Yep. And it just happens to be that's who he's going to be guarding. All right, let's go on to game 3. It is also a 7:00 game. There's 3 of them, and it's the New Orleans Pelicans and the Washington Wizards. And of course, as fate would have it, the old coach gets the highest game on the board.
Big time.
239.5. I think it's going to go like 242. That's my prediction. And Pelicans favored by 2, so we're expecting a close game as well. The only one piece of huge news here is we need to know if Ball is going to play or not. He is questionable, and that is a big piece of news. It affects that lineup for sure. If this isn't your favorite game, then you haven't been watching a whole lot of basketball lately, because neither one of these teams plays defense. Both of these teams can get up and down the floor, and man, this game could just be crazy good as far as especially jumping out to a big start here. So I've been sour the last few weeks on going double studs from one team. I think, sometimes it pays off. There's no question about it, especially in a real high scoring game or if you get an overtime. But generally, on a slate this big with 20 teams, I'm not going to go like a Westbrook and Beal. And it's just, I think it's almost like betting against yourself a little bit because yes, they both could do very well, but can they both completely smash? Maybe a 1 in 10 chance that happens. So I think you got to just buckle down and choose the stud that you want. Um, I love going stud on each side here, and I'm going to go Zion, who's a plug and play. He's one of my favorites tonight. And on the other side, I'm going Westbrook. So lots of money spent here. I just don't like the defensive matchups against Westbrook here. If Ball plays, he's okay defensively. And if not, then you're looking at a bunch of other guys, either Bledsoe or what's the I lose his name here.
Najee
Who's the young?
Marshall,
No, who's the
Kyra Lewis
young?
Jr.
Kyra Lewis Jr. So I think it'd be one of those guys probably guarding him, and I don't see how they slow him down at all. Beal stepped up the last game, had quite a few points. He's feeling better. So, I'm not saying Beal's a bad play at all, but I slightly favor Westbrook. And then I like some of the ancillary guys here as well, Andrew, with all of these criteria. Basically, all the criteria that we like to stack on is present in this game. I don't want to spend up for Ingram here as the second stud, but I think you can consider the possibility of seeing what happens with Ball. If Ball plays and he doesn't have a minutes restriction, I think he's in play. If not, Lewis Jr., I think you can look at him possibly. Maybe a Najee Marshall. We got to see who's going to start and if Ball's out to determine, who that second guy is. Even a Steven Adams, believe it or not, is going to get some consideration at his cheaper price because of all the increased amount of possessions. On the Washington side, I really like Rui Hachimura all the time. He's at his price, but it has gone up, and not sure if he's going to be able to stay out of foul trouble if he wins the lottery and gets to guard Zion. So, a little concerned, not as high on Hachimura as I normally would be. Couple of contrarian looks here. Maybe a Denny Advia. He's getting better. He's going to get big minutes, and I think he's at least worth a gander if you're trying to find a value play and the other stuff isn't an opening up for you. Not going to go with a big there. I don't like Len. I don't like Lopez at all. The guy that I like, but I can't suggest him on this 20-team slate, is Daniel Gafford. That guy is a really good DFS points per minute, rebounds, blocks, and he scores. And I think he'll probably get 20 minutes here. And on a smaller slate, I would recommend him. Maybe a GPP shot, because if he does get 25 to 28 minutes, he could get, mid 30s and be a difference maker. But keep an eye on him. Hopefully they suppress Leonard or Lopez and let him start, because I think he's their best center. It looked like when he first came over in that deal that he was, and he did start, and then he got hurt. Now it's sort of a share, but he's the guy I'd consider of those big. So, this could be 4 guys of my lineup out of this game, probably 3. I think, definite exposure to this game is extremely necessary.
Yeah, I like this game a lot as well. And we'll have a couple stars in here. Right now, I'm leaning to a couple of the other ones from you. I like Beal on the Wizards side.
Okay, I can't fault that.
Yeah, he scored 47 against the Pelicans when they played before. Now Westbrook didn't play that game, but I still think this is just the perfect matchup for him. We talk about it all the time. New Orleans can't stop the 3-point shooting, and Beal so much cheaper than Westbrook. And I
I
agree.
know.
I agree. It makes sense to pick one of them on this slate. So I'm leaning towards Beal, and I like Ingram on the other side because if I'm going to pay up for Embiid, it'd be a lot tougher to also pay up for Zion.
I know it.
And
You got to bite the bullet somewhere, though.
yeah, yeah. So that's where I'm looking for the pay up guys. I'm hoping that Lonzo sits to get a few more shots for Ingram. And I agree, you could look at one of the other guys for the Pelicans, Najee Marshall if he starts, Kyrie Lewis Jr., one of those guards in the 3K range I was talking about. And then on the Wizards side, Bertans is still an option for me. 3,700 on FanDuel. You get plenty of possessions and open threes here. He is so fun to watch as a shooter, coach. He gets it and he shoots it with one of the fastest releases in the NBA from deep. It doesn't matter if he's 6 feet behind the line. He is ready to catch and shoot. And he's just an
Yeah,
awesome
it
shooter.
is.
So
And on top of that, he's so tall that
right.
with that kind of release, nobody's going to be able to get to him in
It
time.
it really helps with his confidence. He knows he's going to get a shot off. So he just plans to do it and he does. And
Crazy. 34 footers look like foul
oh
shots.
my
You know,
gosh,
it's
it
weird.
is impressive. And then Ish Smith on the other side is another guard to get some exposure to this game. He got much bigger minutes last game,
Did.
and Neto took a hit. So Ish
Yeah.
Smith would be the backup guard I would look at over there potentially.
I'm so scared of those guys though, because they're both good,
Mm-hmm.
but you just don't know, who's going to get the minutes. That's
Right.
the scary thing. Yeah.
All right, the next game we go to 7:30, and this one has Brooklyn in it, which is kind of nice. We love their pace, their offense, and their lack of defense.
Yeah.
And a little bit surprised that the total here 223.5. They are favored by 12.5. And
Yeah.
on the Charlotte side, the big thing here, of course, injury news continues with Hayward still out, LaMelo still out. Now we have Graham out tonight, P.J.
Yeah.
Washington doubtful, Brad Wanamaker questionable. So that
Yeah.
takes
They've
away,
gotten just hammered
yeah.
with injuries.
So that takes away a lot of their offensive punch,
Yeah.
but it is a great matchup, and so Rozier comes right to the forefront.
For sure.
Good option I think on both sites. Gets the great matchup. He's going to have the ball in his hands all night, so he's a key option for me tonight. And I think Caleb Martin will likely start again. And the last time he started, double double, added 5 assists, just absolutely smashed value. He's in the 3K range on both sites, so
Yeah.
he's a value play I like. And then you could also look at somebody like Bridges. I would think he would get 15 shots or more. More expensive, but he's an option here. That's kind of where I'm focused there on the Charlotte side. I do want to get, solid exposure to those guys against Brooklyn's bad defense. And then with Brooklyn, we should have Kyrie and KD out there together for the first time in a while. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
KD is an option for me here because you look at the trend in his minutes. He's gone 18, 23, 27. So if we get him over 30 minutes, low 9K range, this could be a good opportunity to get some Durant exposure. And looking at the rest of Brooklyn's lineup, here's another starting five I'm kind of curious about. Do they go smaller and they get Shamet out there again, who started the last game, or do they go a little bit bigger and potentially start Jeff Green again? I figure DeAndre Jordan will probably start after that retirement news from LaMarcus Aldridge that I talked about yesterday.
That was crazy.
Yeah, really, really crazy. So maybe a one-off with some Brooklyn value because you do have some decent price tags here, but I really like Caleb Martin on the other side and Rozier. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to those guys.
Yeah, this is a really intriguing game. I mean, I think there's some real gems in here that could make a difference in your lineup. It's funny, we joke about, the the Martin twins for Charlotte, but I mean, it really is tough to figure out because Cody has been the better player, but all of a sudden now Caleb has stepped up and done better. So, man, I'll tell you, I think DFS should make a blanket rule. You take one Martin, you get them both. That's
Just get
that's
the
my
best
theory.
score out of either one.
Yeah, because it truthfully is very tough. I mean, there's not one that's like a million times better than the other one. Caleb's been better recently, but Cody also gets minutes and has been better prior. So
Right.
for me, because my brain can't take looking at like the same guy out there and not knowing which one to root for, I think I'm going to avoid that situation. But my top player on the whole slate, you know who it is. I guarantee you know who it is.
Rozier.
It is. It is. I think he gets 30 shots. I think he's a dominant player that, they may try to bring in a stopper to try to guard him off the bench or Brown or somebody. But I think that the way this game sets up, the pace, the lack of defense, Rozier's just got to shine here. And he's the last man standing of their four best players. So I'm all over him. He's in every lineup. I think, regardless that he's a little expensive, I don't see how you get away from it for me in cash games, even if it's a blocker, because he's going to be highly owned and just think he's automatic. I also like Miles Bridges a bit here, and McDaniels is playable to me. McDaniels is a sneaky guy because he'll grab a lot of those rebounds, loose rebounds. He really crashes the boards, and his price is right. Miles is a little expensive, but with PJ out, he's sort of taken over that playing the four, almost playing a little bit of backup five, just sort of doing everything. The only problem with Miles at times is he doesn't get enough shots up, like you said, and they don't run a lot for him, and he's more of a creates his own offensive rebound and gets out and runs and is a great finisher on the break, which is the reason I'm considering him. Brooklyn likes to push the ball. There's going to be a lot of up and down. So, definitely Rozier, considering McDaniels, leaning towards Bridges. On the Brooklyn side, with spending all the money on Westbrook and Zion, unfortunately, I can't afford Durant. He would be my pick on that side. Definitely fading Kyrie at that huge price now that KD's back. I think he'll defer quite a bit to KD, and I think KD gets 28 to 32 minutes, which makes me want to play him. And, I'm not saying I might not switch from Zion to him at some point during the day, but as of right now, I'm not going to go there. Even with LaMarcus retiring, and that was sad news because I loved watching him play. He's one of the last guys standing that is a mid-range shooter, and that I loved the mid-range shooter guys through my lifetime, the Bernard Kings and all the guys that 15, 17 footer from the baseline or wherever, just automatic, like a layup. Now nobody takes them. You see guys with 20 field goal attempts, literally, 10 of them were threes and 10 of them are in the paint. So, it's a dying art, but I think it's underrated. And I'll tell you, guys like Luke, it drives me nuts when Luka drives to the paint, has a 5-foot shot open, and he slings it out for somebody to take a three. Take the 2 points, for God's sakes.
Do you like it? Do you like it when Luka takes off balance threes at the buzzer?
From three down by two,
Yeah,
yeah,
you like those?
occasionally.
Yeah.
Yes, I did fall on the floor. So if it was recorded, I stumbled off the couch to jump up when that ball went in, and I went down. So if it was recorded, it would have been hilarious. I was fine, but I did kiss the ground a bit, but it was worth it for that win. But anyway, to get back to that is, I think it's a dying art, and LaMarcus was one of the best of all times to do that, and definitely going to miss him. But I still don't feel comfortable with the inside players for Brooklyn. It's just drives me nuts. I'm not even going to go there because Green, Jordan, Claxton,
Blake
Blake.
Griffin. Yep.
I mean, it's like, come on, man. I don't want to have that stress, and you can't afford to stub your toe. I've looked at some of the latest slates I've done. I've been spot on with every guy, and then a couple of times there's that one guy that just murders you. Harkless killed me the one night. I've tried to erase those things from my mind,
Right.
but the problem is if you take a guy like a Jordan and he plays 12 minutes, or maybe you think this is the Claxton rotation game and he plays 12 minutes. I mean, it's just too scary on a slate this big. So for me, I doubt I'm going to have any Brooklyn action here unless I end up giving in and going with Durant. But I do really like the Charlotte side. I think this plays into their hands because they're shorthanded and certain guys are going to just have to step up. So it's a good game.
Absolutely. How about the other 7:30 game?
The other 7:30 game
Got lots of
is
injuries there too, especially with Toronto.
we do, and this game is Toronto by 2.5. It's only 218.5. So here we go. I got the other monster news game as far as guys out, and we had talked a little bit before the pod. I think Toronto's mailing it in. I think Nick Nurse, they're 12 games under 500. I know they've got 10 teams with this play-in stuff, but I don't think that they're really going after it right now. So we'll see. But they are sitting a boatload of guys. Again, you've got Anunoby, Siakam, and Lowry, three of their best four players out. Bembry doubtful and Trent doubtful. So you're basically left with Fred VanVleet, who's been out. And so, we need more news on him to see if there's any restrictions, what the situation's going to be.
I think he's still out, isn't he?
Is he out?
Let me double check that.
I have him listed here as in, but that's something we need to know. Because he's been out for quite some time. But I had him listed as in. But the key will be with him when he does come back, if he is back today, is that, is there going to be a minutes restriction, or is it just, full board? He gets out there and plays his 30.
You're right. He's not listed on the injury report for today with that hip issue. So he is on track to play.
And I think a lot of people are going to do the same thing you did, is assume he's still out. And he could, if that's the case and he gets under the radar a little bit, and he's not restricted, he could be a slate breaker because none of their other players that shoot the ball, except Flynn, who's, grown into that role. I mean, right now, I have the probable lineup: VanVleet, Flynn, Watanabe, Boucher, and Birch. So, I'm going to dig in on this VanVleet news. He could be a phenomenal play, even though he's a little pricey. It could really pay off. If he's going to be restricted, though, I think you got to go right to Flynn again, who takes a lot of shots and is playing with so much more confidence. You certainly can go with Boucher. They played this Boucher-Birch group, two guys together, and Birch is also playable here. Orlando's a G League team, so if you get big minutes from those key guys, Flynn, Boucher, and Birch, they're all in play. So Toronto is my secret squirrel team, not just guy here. I'd like to have at least two of their guys in my lineup, and I just need, we need to dig in on that news. So follow us in Discord, jump in at dfscoachtalk.com. We'll also be, putting some stuff up on Twitter. We're at DFS CoachTalk. On the Orlando side, we have some news as well. We've got Bamba questionable, which is important because he splits time with Carter if he plays. MCW is also out, which brings one of my guys back into play a little bit that I used to use at the beginning of the year, and that's Cole Anthony. If he's going to get the big run at point, he is certainly an option if you need a value guy there. Again, just based on what news is going to open up. Not comfortable going with anybody else here. Harris, Ennis, Okeke, Carter. There are other guys that are rotating in there. Carter can be considered if Obama is ruled out, but I'm still not a big fan, even though he did have a good game the last time out. So for me, it's going to be jump on Toronto, a couple of guys, and if I need a pivot, a point to make the salary work, if I get nuts and try to get Williamson and KD in there, then I may look at a Cole Anthony. But don't sell the Raptors short tonight with the rotation that they're going to have.
Yeah, there's definitely an opportunity there to get one of those guards in. I like Birch, though, as my favorite Raptor tonight. He's going to be feeling good going back to play against his former mates
Oh, you know that.
not in Orlando, but against them. And he's,
Although all
as a
his mates got traded.
true, a lot of them did, but as a starter, he's on top of the world now. So I
Yeah,
like his potential here tonight. And
I
then
like it. And you always get a hard run from him too.
right,
When that's all I ask sometimes is if you put a DFS guy in there, just bust your tail. Some guys just go through the motions.
exactly. Definitely
Yeah.
like how he plays. And then with Orlando, you could go with Cole Anthony if he starts. I do like Gary Harris here, really cheap price on both sites, and got up to 30 minutes last game. And
Yeah.
I just think he was just in a funk in Denver and wasn't getting many shots. I think he has really good potential. And if he's getting shots, we know that he can get steals and mix in a few rebounds. So I like Gary Harris here as an option. He's probably my favorite player there, and I will have Birch a lot.
Very nice.
All right.
Now we get to skip to the 8 o'clock games, huh?
Yeah, second half of the slate here. We've got Memphis in Chicago, 225 total. Memphis favored by 4.5. Front end of a back to back for both teams. You combine that with the good pace, 7th and 11th. And then you do have some injuries that are key on both sides. With Memphis, we have Melton and Winslow still out, Clark questionable. And then with Chicago, Mr. Levine is out. Big news there. And then
Huge.
Satoransky is probable. So with Memphis here quickly, if Clark sits, Kyle Anderson gets a bump. He's a decent price on DraftKings. Grayson Allen or Brooks could certainly get it done in a high paced game here, but they're both a little bit inconsistent. So I'm more interested in on the Chicago side, and Levine has played 53 of the 54 Bulls games. The one game he missed was that game against Phoenix, and what they did was they started Satoransky. They went small or big with Patrick Williams, Markkanen, Thad Young, and Vucevic. That was the
Yeah.
starting five that night. I think there's a good chance we'll get that again, assuming Satoransky starts. And Laurie Markkanen is really cheap because he's gone back to the bench. His minutes have gone down. So there's a value option for you in the 3K range on both sites.
Yeah. Can't
But
believe that his price is in the 3K. He was
yep,
supposed to be a star.
I know, but now he's getting 16 to 20 minutes off the bench.
It's
So I
crazy.
think that changes tonight. You could look at him. Vucevic should get a few more shots, but I don't think I want to pay up for him against Valanciunas. I'd rather pay up for Embiid if I'm going to pay up at center. And
Yeah.
then the guy we got to mention here is the one who stepped up in that game against Phoenix. Valentine had a huge game, 29 minutes, 19, 6, and 4. So
Yeah.
I like him here. I like him better than Troy Brown Jr., two guys who stand to benefit from Levine's absence. So Markkanen and Valentine are the value options for me here, and that's what I'm probably looking at this game for is a value player.
Yeah, I this game smells to me of a low scoring game. I don't like the feel of it with Levine out, with the two bigs, Joe Val and Vukovic battling a bit inside. It just feels like a half court kind of game. Not having Levine in there is definitely going to slow things down. I think there'll be times where it's obviously either Satoransky or White at point. I think you get Garrett Temple back in the mix now, which confuses things a little bit. Markkanen, who's in their doghouse all season, basically. It's hard to trust, what Donovan's going to do with him. I don't think he likes him. So, yeah, Thad Young has been the guy that always comes up for me with Chicago because he's so efficient with the minutes that he gets. So I do want to see the starting lineup because if it is the way it was, just as you pointed out very adeptly there the last time, where they have Markkanen starting, I do like Thad Young because Markkanen's not going to take that 20 minutes right from Young. It may split a little bit with him getting the extra minutes for filling Levine's spot in the starting lineup. So I want to see that move. Not willing, as good as Valentine playing the last game, I'm just not willing on this big of a slate to go to those risky guys because, I mean, Valentine screams of a guy that, scores 29 and then 6. It's just too risky. It's as a cash player. Great GPP play because he could, have the confidence and follow back up with 25 points again. On the Memphis side, you know, Ja's playable here. He's playing well. And I don't like Kobe's D, but I respect Sato's D. They may even play a little temple on him at times just to slow him down. I don't think I'm going anywhere here. I just don't like the feel of this game. And, I may play the under 225 and a half just for if there's any interest. That would be my favorite play as far as the wagering side. But I think I'm going to pass this game, Andrew.
Okay.
All right, the next game on the board is Denver and Houston. We've got very little news here. Very little news, which is very odd. I mean, you still got a boatload of guys out for Houston. I'll give you the whole rundown just to show how sad it is for those poor guys. Augustine, Brown, Exum, Gordon, House, and Nawaba all still out. But we got all the main players, except we know Jamal Murray's out for the season. So Monte Morris got the start last time. Certainly, actually, the Faku was on me, not anybody else, because I thought Campazzo would play and possibly start, but he did not do well in relief there. So, still not sold on the Morris thing. I think Campazzo gets some of those minutes. The question is, do you want to pay up for a guy like the Joker? I'm not going to have the money to do it. I really respect Wood's defense anyway. Wood can go out and guard him for however far away he wants to go from the basket. I think that, the Denver side, to me, I have a little bit of interest in Will Barton because his price is good and he gets the big minutes. And Michael Porter Jr., same thing. Not sure I'm going to go there with Gordon. He's been a good addition to that team, but inconsistent, good games and just average games. So, Barton and Porter will get a little bit of a look. On the Houston side, the thing is, and I mentioned this last slate, Wall, Porter, Olynyk, and Wood, and even Tate, I mean, those guys are the key guys now, and they're sharing the ball, and they're doing better offensively as a group. Generally, it seems like we've had pricing has been formulated on a lot of these guys when several of the other ones were out. So, Wall's price, Porter, and Wood's prices, specifically, all three of them are just a little bit too high for me from a comfort level. I like all three of those guys. I think they all have a lot of potential, but I don't think I can pay the price for them. Olynyk's the only guy that's price is at least reasonable that you can consider a little bit, but I don't think. I think they'll get ownership, Houston, and deservedly so, but I'm not sure on the shared minutes and shared usage that it's going to be a target for me.
Yeah, not a huge target game overall for me. I'm not thrilled about the Denver side with everybody out there. I do like how Gordon is trending and the potential for him in this offense.
Yeah.
Without Murray. And he's just in the 5K range. I mean, the guy's got plenty of talent to smash that. But he hasn't been getting a ton of shots. So
right.
I'm really.
Where do you think Murray's usage goes to? How does it spread?
I think,
like, let's say he takes 25 shots. Where do those shots go? That's my dilemma.
I think it's, I think it's going to be pretty balanced. Monte
Okay.
Morris will get a few. Porter Jr., I think, will get a few more. And Gordon, he's the guy that has to, because when he's been there those first few games, he wasn't getting many shots at all. So
right.
That's why I think this is the real key place to look in these next couple games is what happens with him.
Yep. Because they have to land somewhere. And when I broke out the game, I ended up just dispersing them sort of evenly.
Mm-hmm.
And, that doesn't help for DFS. But if we can, get a real boost, maybe you're right, because Gordon does play that sort of points big man kind of role. He could be the biggest beneficiary, and that it might be good to get on him before everybody else realizes that.
Right. Now, on the other side, Houston with those prices, it's almost like Phoenix in a way. With do you invest in a guy like Wall, who's had 30 actual points here multiple times recently, or a guy like Wood? He's had two straight games over 50 fantasy points,
Yeah.
and that's the guy I'm leaning towards, especially on FanDuel where he's only 7,800. And I think the matchups are going to work out that Gordon will be on Wood and Jokic will be on Olynyk. And I think Wood can manage all right. It's not a great pace game because Denver's 29th, but
Right.
I just have an affinity for Wood with his game. Is anytime he's in the 7K range, and our resident expert on the Nuggets, Joe Stanton, agrees with me on those matchups. So I'm looking at that
Nice.
one. Yep. And Wall, I think, could get it done again. And the nice thing about him is he really does push it. Houston
Yeah.
is fifth in pace, and he's almost like Westbrook in that sense, where he pushes it so hard that they get extra possessions,
Yeah.
which is nice. So Wood is probably my favorite play here tonight, but not thrilled about the game overall.
I agree, because as much as Houston pushes it, Denver slows it down, and generally it seems like Denver's like Utah. They control pace regardless.
Yep. All right, the next 8 o'clock game, Miami and Minnesota, 219
Yeah.
and a half total. Heat favored by 7.5. This is basically a pass game for me.
Yeah.
No big news. We've got Iguodala questionable, Jalen Noel questionable on the other side, but Miami's got the slow pace. It's a great matchup for them, but Butler's 9,200. He's been banged up a little bit with the ankle. Bam is a good price. So those guys are playable. Ariza, the value play, of course. We've got all the guards back, and I don't think you need to go to one of those guys on this slate with many other cheaper guard options. And then with Minnesota, just such a tough matchup with Miami's sixth-ranked defense. I think Jimmy can really shut down Edwards. Cat, ultra expensive, has to go against Bam. So this is likely a full pass for me, Coach.
I'm right with you. I don't like this game either, and I think it will get some ownership. Butler, Bam, Cat, maybe even a little Edwards. I don't like the game either. Again, you've got Miami that I think will try to control the tempo of the game. They've got all their guards back, so good luck trying to figure out that six guard rotation. And Ariza has probably been one of the better value plays this last 10 days. And, he is a good play here again. He can be played, if not, there's not a whole lot of other value that opens up. He's on that short list of possible guys, as is McDaniels on the other side of the ball. For some reason, these McDaniel brothers have been in my radar lately, because they both play hard. They're getting better. They're getting minutes, and their price is good. So, not ruling him out either. The two value guys, Ariza and McDaniels. The only problem is, I'm trying to figure out who Ariza is going to guard, because whoever Butler and Ariza guard, I generally eliminate. I think Butler goes on Edwards though. And so if Ariza slips up and guards Okogie rather than McDaniels, and they try to put Duncan Robinson on McDaniels, then that's a play. So I'm going to do a little more digging there, see what that rotation is going to look like. But yeah, I just don't like Edwards and Towns. I've played a lot recently, but they're facing square in the teeth Butler and Bam, so that eliminates that. Bam is probably a really good play. Cat's not a good defender. Major pace up game for Miami. He's probably the best play on this team. I just don't have the salary to utilize here. But if I was playing a GPP one off, I would take Bam out of this game, but I'm not crazy about it either.
Excellent.
All right, we got 2 games left. Before we get to these last 2 games, real quickly, this is the best time to try our 3-day pass. It's a Friday. If you're listening to this, we've got a huge slate tonight: NBA, MLB, and the weekend PGA. So jump in, $10, dip your toe in the water, try it out. Fantastic community there. Just go to dfscoachtalk.com and your option will be right on there for memberships. If you want to try the 3-day, you get everything Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So you got all the baseball, multiple slates for both baseball and basketball, all 3 days. And again, that golf weekend only lineup, which has been really hot lately. So you can catch all of that. If you want to choose a different membership, we have multiple options there. If you want to get a free membership from now until June 1st, you can go to betus.com.pa, deposit $149 if it's your first deposit with BetUS, and then just shoot us an alert on at DFS CoachTalk on Twitter. Let us know that you signed up with them. We'll confirm that, and then we'll plug you right into Discord for tonight's action, and you'll have a free membership with us all the way until June 1. So take advantage of that as well. Love to have you. Community's growing. A lot of good insight in there. Crash Davis, as we call him, also known as Josh, is doing a terrific job with baseball. His sidekick, Tyler Pitzer, they'll be providing baseball lineups Saturday and Sunday. I'll be providing baseball with Josh, or Crash, as they say, tonight. So definitely great time. We'd love to have you. Jump aboard, check us out. All right, the 8:30 game, and then we've got an hour time till that last game, which happens to be the Mavericks. But before that game, we've got Portland and San Antonio. So interesting matchup. San Antonio's on the first night of a back-to-back. It is Portland -2, and how about this number, Andrew? 232.5.
Yep.
That's a pretty hefty number for a Spurs game. The only guy that I have questionable right now is Gorgie Jeng. I think everybody else is ready to roll it out there. And that becomes an issue for me with Portland. Portland has been the most stackable team so much because they generally have 2 studs in there. But now that you're looking at Lillard, McCollum, Powell, Covington, Nurkic, and then Cantor off the bench, and then, those guys are all going to get theirs. And, I think you're going to get DeJounte Murray, who I really respect his defense. I think he goes at Lillard. So if I was going to play somebody on the Portland side, I would look at CJ. I think CJ would be my favorite trailblazer. I'm not sure he's going to make the cut for me, but he is in my player pool. I think Robert Covington's minutes have been safe. It's just his price has fluctuated a little bit. But, he's 30-plus minutes every night. He's in there, for defensive purposes, 3 and D. But he will get some stocks for you for sure. And he's a playable guy at a tough position of power forward. On the San Antonio side, even though Portland's defense is horrific, nobody just flies off the page to me. My favorite Spur here would be DeJounte Murray, though. I mean, he gets Lillard or McCollum defense for the most part, and neither one of them do a great job there. My problem is he going to get the full run that he needs to? I mean, if this guy played like Fox minutes, like 38 minutes, and I'd play him a lot because he's extremely talented. He's an adept 3-point shooter. He's incredibly quick. I mean, I'd compare him to, Fox speed-wise and, prime time John Wall days. I mean, these guys are sleek, fast dudes. And, I think he's certainly going to be in my player pool. I'd love to have DeJounte Murray, but if I can afford him, he would be the spot I'd want to go. DeRozan's their number 1 guy. Great pace-up game, a lot of potential points here. So he's got to be considered. So for me, this game is decent. I don't always trust Spurs games, but I think McCollum is a great play. You can look at Covington. Murray, I really want to roster. And if you have the salary, if you passed on a decent price guy, or you're going with more of a mid-level build, DeRozan is expensive, but still falls below those elite prices with some of the other guys. So not a bad game all in all, Andrew.
Yeah, interesting here with the higher total. Like you said, though, everybody out there for the key players on both sides. So for me, it's a lot of guys who are just barely not quite as attractive as some of the other options on the slate. So it most likely be more of a mid-tier guy as the last guy in the lineup, a guy like Powell or Covington, or on San Antonio, been playing around a little bit and ending up with Derek White. The thing again though with San Antonio, front end of a back-to-back, so hard to trust. And like you said, I mean, guy like DeJounte Murray, he's not going to get 38 minutes like we would get with Fox. So it's a whole different analysis with the Spurs. So it's a decent chance it'll end up a pass for me, in large part because it's a front end for San Antonio.
Makes sense. He definitely can get stung, or it can break the slate. That's the tough part about Spurs games.
Exactly. All right. Last game of the night, it does involve those Mavericks. 5.5 point favorites at home against the Knicks. Second ESPN game here. Everybody wants to watch Luka on Friday night, so here we go.
Yeah.
And the injury news here, not too significant. We have Nerlens Noel questionable with the ankle. He missed the last game, and Taj Gibson played 35 minutes.
That's unreal.
Yeah, so we'll see how that shakes out. Noel back there in Dallas, and we do like to play centers against them. And these guys are both cheap, but if Noel is playing, then probably a decent chance they both play 24 minutes, which makes it tough. And then Randall, pretty expensive here in a slow-paced game because we always have at least half of a hesitation with New York because of their pace. They're last in the league, and now Dallas 25th on the other side with a defense that's improving, as you've been talking about. So not my favorite night to get to Randall, and because of the pace, probably won't go with any of the New York guards. And then on the Dallas side, don't like the matchup at all. New York's number 3 in the league, so I don't want to pay up for Luka or Porzingis. Brunson just continues to be so solid. Whether he's starting, coming off the bench, his price doesn't go up for some reason, even after a near triple-double last game. So he's probably the guy most likely to play as a value, but mostly a pass game here for me, Coach.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in this game either. I think it'll be one of the lower scoring.
Don't tell that to Dirk behind you.
I know
he doesn't
Dirk,
like to hear that.
Dirk has cotton in his ears. He's sick of my podcast. He doesn't listen to a thing anymore. But the 211 total is quite alarming. And Dallas is favored by 5.5 here. But I just see no reason to roster anybody on Dallas for sure. I mean, if you're not going to play Luka, or if you're lucky enough to spin the roulette wheel and pick the 1 out of 5 games that Porzingis goes off, good luck there. But against this slow Knicks team with a great D, it just makes no sense to spend all your money here. So Dallas, easy pass for me today. Knicks, though, I am toying with Julius Randle here. And the reason being is, if Noel is hurt and he's questionable right now, he missed the last game, like you said, Taj Gibson's not a center, first of all. He's a 4. And if he's going to play big minutes, and the only other big that they really play is Julius, he's the 4/5, going to get all the rebounds. Dallas can't stop anybody on the interior. I know the pace is going to be slow, and but I just think Julius is extremely tempting here. I may definitely pivot to him as opposed to one of the more expensive guys earlier. Certainly can't afford them all, but it is, and I wasn't trying to, but my lineup is coming out to be more of a stars and scrubs because the scrubs happen to be just really good value plays. It's not as much, you're digging for gold. I mean, these guys that we're calling scrubs are going to get 30 plus minutes. So you can, in doing that, I would love to ratchet up Julius here because he's due for a big game. Dallas doesn't really have the answer for him. They'll start Maxi Kleba on him, but he could easily get in some foul trouble. And then if their secondary option is to go either KP or Melly or a Willie Cauley-Stein, and those guys can't hang with him at all. So I think Julius is a great play here. His price is sort of ridiculous, but I think he's the best play. I don't like anybody else from this game. And, I know a lot of people out there say, well, wait a minute, this game starts an hour later than all the rest. It's on national TV. Got to have exposure here. Well, you don't. I mean, if the New Orleans-Washington game was at this 9:30 spot and flipped with Dallas on the earlier one, I'm going to, and this is important for all people that want to win at this consistently. You can't worry about, who am I going to get to watch in the late game? If it's a bad game, it's a bad game. If it's a great game, it's a great game. And this just happens to be one of the lower scoring, lowest paced, better defensive matchups of the night. So don't be afraid to pass it all together. Toy with Julius Randle, because I know he's going to have a solid game. The question is, can he blow up the slate?
Yeah, he's always tempting, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So we know you'll be watching the game for sure as the Mavs guys. So it's going to be a fun Friday night here with this 10-game slate. Hope you all enjoyed the show. If you have any questions, reach out to us on Twitter at DFS CoachTalk. You can also follow the coach at JoeSarvadi. You can follow me at Language Olympic. And we'll be back tomorrow. Coach will be running the next NBA podcast. We do 7 days a week. So hopefully, if you like these shows, subscribe to the channel on YouTube if you haven't already. And appreciate the thumbs up and likes wherever you're listening. Appreciate all your support. And that will wrap it up for today. So on behalf of the coach and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. We'll see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.